The show, later that evening at the Ritz, a couple blocks north of St. Mark's, was being broadcast live on MTV, and Axl's band, Guns N' Roses, was wired tight for maximum rock and roll. America took notice. When it aired, the show was watched by a relatively small audience of American teenagers, up way past their bedtimes. But the show was recorded on dusty VHS tapes and passed around high school corridors repeatedly over the coming months, until the ferocity of Guns N' Roses was recognized and salivated over en masse by high school kids everywhere. Axl Rose came to life on screen as a real-life version of the Breakfast Club's Johnny Bender. He was the high school burnout who we all knew growing up. The one who doubled down on shop electives and wore ripped jeans out of necessity, not out of a sense of fashion. The guy who sported self-imposed cigarette burns on his muscular forearms and was rumored to have a Budman tattoo on his ass. This was the same dude who sat in the back of the classroom and simultaneously frightened and attracted the cheerleaders. Those same cheerleaders who wouldn't give you the time of day. You saw this dude standing alone, quiet, at the edge of the keg party up off the train tracks. You left him alone because you heard the story about the time he busted the bottle of Michelob across the jock with the big mouth's face. But inside, you burned to know more about him. What made him tick? What made him so pissed? What made him so fucking cool? And just like that kid, Axl was filled with contempt and untapped confidence. On stage at the Ritz, you could feel his anger. It was something that had been building up inside since birth. It was coming out one way or another, likely through violent rage or petty crime or both. But rock and roll saves. Otherwise, Axl Rose would likely have been in jail on that night instead of blowing the minds off of all in attendance as well as everyone watching at home on television and later on Memorex. On stage, Axl looked a little older than the millions of high school burnouts who would soon come to worship him and his band. He was essentially the same angry young man he was growing up back in Lafayette, Indiana, but at the Ritz, it was clear that his time had come. And he'd arrived with a murderer's row of bandmates. Slash, the bronzed Mad Hatter Adonis, Izzy Stradlin with his Ronnie Wood via Johnny Thunders cool, Duff McKagan 11 feet tall and oozing punk rock sex and excitement. And last, the wide-eyed ball of heavy metal puppy dog charisma, Steven Adler. A band that you could immediately tell never had a fuck to give. And their live show was flawless. Even with the flaws, it was flawless. Songs like the Diddley-esque Mr. Brownstone, the jet-fueled Night Train, and the showstopper Rocket Queen veer from brilliant to Trainwreck and back again in the time it takes to suck a Marlboro Red from First Flame down to Toxic Filter. GNR was from the street and for the street. Their lyrics represented a band living a hand-to-mouth life of rock and roll debauchery and all too willing to let themselves die in the pursuit of it. You couldn't tell if they were creatively brave, risking it all in the service of making totally authentic rock and roll, or if they were just too stupid to know any better. Through it all, the band was impossibly cool. Every shot, every pose, every note, even the out-of-tune ones from Slash, every vocal, even the ones from Axl that run out of breath, all combined to somehow make them seem even cooler. If you tried, you couldn't have created a more representative version of a rock and roll band than the one Axl Rose took to the Ritz stage on February 2nd, 1988. You wouldn't know it from watching them, but the band and the fuck-all attitude that propelled it, and more specifically its singer, had been a long time in the making. The crack from the back of the hand to his mouth came quick. It was unexpected, and it stung like a motherfucker. Young Axl could taste his blood bubbling up from his lip. The damage could have been worse, but luckily Axl's dad didn't wear rings. Jewelry was too ostentatious for a Pentecostal. And so was Barry Manilow and his #1 hit, Mandy, which was what put Axl on the receiving end of another blow to the grill. Axl made the mistake of absent-mindedly singing along to the song's chorus with its lyrics that his dad somehow considered sexually suggestive. Axl seriously did not understand how he was related to this dude, his old man, this abusive, religious nutbag. But that was because Axl wasn't actually related to him. He just didn't know it yet. Then again, young Axl Rose didn't know much beyond Led Zeppelin riffs, Elton John melodies, and pent-up rage for the man he thought was his father. Soon, young Axl would learn that his father was really his stepfather, and that his real father was never to be brought up. It was a discovery that did little to endear Axl to his stepdad, and thus the violence continued. It wasn't reserved.